Thank you for joining. If this is your evening, um, I've got a great presentation for you. It's going to be about 20 minutes, and I hope you will really enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started. It looks like we are live. So if you've rewritten an email 3 times, not because it was wrong, but because you didn't want to sound too strong. Or if you've caught yourself saying, just a thought, when you actually meant, this is the direction we should go. Or if you've left a meeting thinking, I don't know why I hesitated. That's not a confidence problem. That, my friend, is friction. And most smart, capable women misread it. They assume it means something's off with me, when actually it means I'm stepping in to something bigger. If we haven't met yet, I'm Michelle Morgan. I spent over 20 years inside high pressure healthcare advertising agencies in New York City. Now I help successful women in advertising and marketing take control of what's next in their careers without second guessing themselves in the process. This is the second episode in a series where I walk through the 12 laws of the universe through the lens of what's stalling your career growth. So let's talk about why this matters, especially right now. Friction gets misread. When something feels off, most smart women assume I'm not in the game, or I need to fix this, or I must be losing my edge. So they start adjusting. They second guess themselves more. They over prepare. They soften their language. They take fewer risks. And they hold back until they're absolutely certain before they make a move. And that hesitation compounds over time, not because they aren't capable, because they're reacting to the wrong signal. Growth can feel uncomfortable. And if you call that feeling of uncomfortableness inadequacy, you add qualifiers, disclaimers, and apologies to ideas that didn't really need them. You second guess decisions that don't need second guessing, or you leave the room realizing you didn't say what you came to say. And over time, that creates more of what you're trying to avoid: more doubt, more hesitation, more spiraling. And that's how self sabotage shows up at this level. It doesn't look reckless, it looks responsible. And it slowly reshapes how people see you. And this is especially important right now. There's a lot of instability everywhere: layoffs, technology shifts, market shifts, companies restructuring. When things feel unstable around you, your nervous system looks for what might be unstable within you. So you start second guessing things. You used to decide really quickly. You double check everything and you wait for confirmation, more confirmation before making a move. And you hesitate before you speak. And here's the problem: that shift changes how you come across to others. It shows up in your tone and the qualifiers you add. and in the split-second pause that starts to signal doubt. And in unstable moments, people notice that more than usual. So when things feel shaky, everyone's scanning the room for who sounds the most steady. Not perfect, not loud, but steady. Because when decisions feel risky, people gravitate toward the person who sounds certain about what they know. And if you start adjusting in a way that makes you sound less certain, you weaken your position at the exact time you need it strong. So if friction can be misread, we need to slow down and look at what's actually happening, because there's a pattern here. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Friction isn't burnout. It's that subtle feeling after a meeting where you think that wasn't my best, or it's taking you longer to make decisions than you used to make quickly. And it's replaying that feedback in your head for much longer than necessary. That's friction. And here's what happens next. Friction shows up. You misread it as failure. You adjust. The adjustment makes you sound less certain, and that uncertainty changes how people respond to you. And then you interpret their response as proof that something's wrong. That's the loop. And most high performing women don't realize they're in it. I didn't. There was a period in my corporate career where I was frustrated constantly. I was second guessing decisions I used to trust. Feedback felt sharper than it was, and I thought something was wrong with me. But looking back, nothing dramatic had changed. Well, my role had expanded, the stakes were higher, and growth felt uncomfortable. And I misread that growth as inadequacy. And what happened is I was adjusting in ways that made me sound less steady because of that. That's the loop. So instead of jumping to fix it, let's slow down for a second. And I want you to just think about, where are you hesitating now in your career that you wouldn't have a year ago? Where are you feeling friction? And that's causing you to pause, second guess yourself. And what are you telling yourself about that? And that's really important, because the meaning you assign to that friction determines how you show up next. And that's where the law of vibration comes in. And before your brain goes anywhere mystical, I'm going to ask that you stay with me for a little bit, because I'm not going to talk about crystals or manifesting. I'm going to talk about a career signal, because every room responds to how steady you are when you walk into it. Not what you intend, but how steady you are. If you walk into a conversation steady, clear, grounded, you notice that people relax, they listen differently, and they decide faster. But if you walk into something unsure, start overthinking things, second guessing, people feel that too. They may not consciously name it, but they definitely respond to it. And that's vibration. It's the emotional tone underneath your words. Your resume can stay the same, your capability can stay the same, your words can stay the same. But if you decide that maybe I'm not fully ready for this, you'll soften your point. You'll add disclaimers. You'll hesitate before actually committing to take action. And people will start questioning you more. They'll double check your thinking. They'll hesitate before backing your direction. And let me be a bit more clear here. Two women, same titles, same experience. One walks into a strategy meeting thinking, I hope this lands. And the other walks in thinking, this is the right direction. They may say the exact same sentence, but one sounds tentative and the other sounds grounded. And what you notice is the room responds differently to that. Not because one is smarter, but it's because one is steadier. Rooms respond to perceived certainty, not perfection, certainty. And when friction gets misread as inadequacy, your certainty drops a few degrees, just enough to change the tone, just enough to change the pace, just enough to change how long you pause before answering. It's super subtle. But subtle shifts compound over time. And in unstable environments, those subtle shifts get amplified. This is why this matters. And here's the part that might be a little uncomfortable. You do not control the market. You don't control restructuring, and you don't control who's anxious in the room. But what you do have control over is if you influence whether people back your direction or question it. And you do that every time you speak, every time you hesitate, every time you soften something you already know is right. You're either stabilizing the room or adding to the uncertainty. And it's important to distinguish that this isn't just about pretending to be confident, and it's not about performing certainty. It comes down to what you decide this friction really means. Friction by itself isn't the problem. What you tell yourself about it is. So if friction means I'm expanding, you stay steady because you know you're growing. If friction means I'm slipping, I'm losing my edge, your tone shifts as well. And the people respond to that shift. So the real question becomes, are you reacting to friction or are you leading through it? High performers don't lose ground because things get hard. They lose ground when they unconsciously shift their steadiness under pressure. It isn't about the room. It isn't even about you. Or, sorry, it is about you. No one in that room is going to manage your steadiness for you. That's your job. And once you understand that, You stop trying to make everything go perfectly. You pay attention to how you're showing up instead. That's what changes how people respond. That's the lever. So let's make this super practical for you. I want you to walk away with something that you can take with you today. So I want you to think of one situation right now that feels like friction. And what's something that feels a little sticky in your career? It's not a crisis, just friction. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's a decision. Maybe it's a stretch assignment. Okay. So, what I want you to first do is ask yourself, what story are you telling yourself about this friction? And I want you to be honest with yourself. Is it that this is stretching me, or is it that I'm not fully ready? Okay. And the second thing I want you to think about is, if that story is true, how is it changing the way you show up? If that story is true, how is it changing the way you show up? Is it making you more cautious, especially more cautious than maybe is necessary? Do you find that you're over explaining things, or that you're hesitating before you speak? And then the third one is, if you interpreted this as growth instead of inadequacy, how would you sound different? Would you speak more directly? Would you shorten your answers? Would you stop softening things because you already know them to be true? That's the adjustment. You're not changing your expertise. You're not changing your words. You're changing the meaning you're assigning to that moment of friction. And when the meaning shifts, your tone shifts, your pace shifts, your delivery gets cleaner, and people respond to that. That's the leverage that you want in your career. So, as we close, I want you to take away that friction is not the problem. Misreading friction is. When you interpret growth as inadequacy, you shift your steadiness. And when your steadiness shifts, people respond differently. And that shift compounds over time, not because you're less capable, because the story in your head shifted, and that changed how you showed up. The law of vibration isn't mystical, it's actually quite practical. The room responds to what you bring into it every time. So the question isn't, did I lose my edge? The question is, what meaning am I assigning to this friction? Because that meaning determines the steadiness you bring in. And the steadiness you bring determines whether people lean in or lean back. You don't need to eliminate friction. It's actually good. You need to decide what it means. That's the lever. And once you see that loop and you stop trying to fix the wrong things, you start leading through friction instead of reacting to it. That's the signal most women miss. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next month.